Welcome to Expand Your Empire, the podcast where women stop deferring wealth and start building financial power. I'm Amanda Taylor, investor, strategist, and disruptor of outdated money rules. It's time to own your worth, grow your assets, and build a legacy that lasts. All right, welcome back to the Expand Your Empire podcast. In a couple episodes ago, we talked about finding your financial rhythm, staying grounded, and keeping your money in motion even when life gets chaotic. So today we're taking that rhythm deeper from the mindset into the body, because you can't stay in financial flow if your nervous system is stuck in survival mode. I am excited today because I'm joined by Madisen Rose, a somatic practitioner and divorce recovery coach. And we have a powerful conversation about how money lives in the body and how safety shapes our spending and our saving, and how to start feeling supported by money instead of stressed by it. I loved having Madisen here in person, and I'm so glad you're here too. So let's dive in. Yeah. It looks like we're on the Coffee Talks. Did you ever? You're too young for that.
With who? Coffee Talk
on Saturday Night Live.
Oh yeah, I don't remember it,
okay.
But
You're too young.
I know it.
You're too young. All right, Madisen, I'm so excited you're here. I really am, because it's going to sound weird now because I just recorded the episode yesterday, but people will have already heard an episode that I did yesterday, and I was talking about money, talking about wealth, and that's what I talk about, but we were talking about how to keep your frequency, even when life gets messy, even when chaos happens, when things don't go the way we want. And I talked about, say you get the unexpected car repair. How do you keep your finances in motion and don't make rash decisions? And we talked about another financial thing, but then I talked about the emotional things, like what happens when you just don't feel like it, when you're not in alignment with yourself. And I didn't even realize, I was like, oh, I get to talk to Madisen tomorrow. This is perfect. So I want you to introduce yourself. I'm going to tell people that you are a somatics coach, and I want you to tell them what that means. So welcome to the show, and introduce yourself.
Thank you so much for having me. This is so fun, and I am excited to be with you in person. My name is Madisen Rose, and I am a somatic practitioner and also a divorce recovery coach. Yes. And somatic is used a lot in relation to all sorts of different modalities, because somatic really means in connection with the body. You could do somatic yoga, you could do somatic breath work, you could do somatic meditation. But the training that I have and the work I do is specific to trauma renegotiation based on what's happening in the body and the survival responses of the nervous system. So specific to traumas and the nervous system, what's happening in the body.
That sounds intense.
It can be intense, but one of the things about trauma is that it is not actually the event that has happened, but everything that happens afterwards. And it could be anything that is too much, that happens too soon, too much, too soon, too fast. And so it could be you got in a argument with a coworker, and now every time you see their email pop up, your heart rate increases. That could be considered a trauma, because your body is having a response to a past event as if it's happening in real time.
Okay. I have literally had that happen. Okay, that goes into my next question, actually. I talk a lot about mindset on this show, and our money mindset, our wealth mindset, and how we do that. And you talked to me when we were on a Zoom a couple of weeks ago about kind of the somatics of money. What's the difference? And I think you kind of explained it right there, but I'll just tell kind of my story and how I learned about somatics. Is I'm 47. I grew up in a different world than we're in right now. And my generation was kind of a suck it up buttercup, and nobody wants to hear how you feel. Just go do it. Whatever it is, whatever they asked you to do, whatever they told you to do, just go do it. And so, yeah, nobody cared how you felt. That you just did it. And so I learned, whether I was conditioned or taught or whatever, that you just shove that stuff down and you don't mess with it. So, you know, everybody talks about mindset, and even that was really hard for me, was to get one solid thought, focus on it one time. And then I learned about somatics and stuff in your body, and I was like, I don't even know how to connect that. I don't even know what that feels like. So tell me, when you're working with people, especially like me, who, if you asked me where I feel something, I couldn't tell you. How do you work with people like that?
Yeah, it's very common because we are socialized, conditioned, especially if you had family that was a suck it up buttercup kind of family. We don't have practice. So it's not that you didn't ever have feelings or were never connected to your body ever. It's that you really did exercise the like mind over matter. Yeah. And the disconnection from the body, and the powering through, and I'm going to ignore or squish or like suppress my emotions in the name of productivity. And we really start very small, and it has to be incremental, because the disconnection or the exercise or practice of being disconnected from the body is so familiar, and it might be something you've been doing for years or decades or most of your life. And so we have to start really, really small when someone feels disconnected from the body. And it could be asking someone, like, you're excited about this podcast today. If that lived in your body and you felt 1% of excitement, where might that be?
I always say it in the same, people ask me, where do you feel it? And I'm like, I don't know, right here. And it's always in the same place though.
Yeah. So we would slow it down.
I don't like, is that right? Do I get it right? Here's the right answer.
I know. So we might slow it down, because if you say, and I was the same way, it was like, I don't even know. And I needed to slow down and have more time, because at that point the body is like whispering to you and not screaming at you. So the excitement, do you feel it in your chest? Maybe you don't know, but we can give it a little bit of time and see, like, is it in your toe? Is it in your back? Is it in your face? And just slowing down enough so that your body feels like, oh, I can communicate this message and it'll be heard.
Yeah. I also talked in that episode that I recorded yesterday, and this is so true, is that there is so much shame around money and fear and stress and anxiety. I think over half of the women polled in whatever poll it was said that they stress about money, and I think 90% of the population overall says they stress about money, and it shows up in our bodies and our physical health, as well as mental, emotional, spiritual, all of these things. And so I want to know, like, in your work, when it comes to something like that, we have all of these deep-seated beliefs about money, shame. It's very nuanced. You know, it can't be just you make money, you spend money, you save money, you invest money. There's way deeper stories than that. And we talk about, you know, remember and journal and do all these things, but what does that mean to have somatics of money in those stories?
So somatics in relation to money, especially when there is fear and stress around it, it is very nuanced. Mm-hmm. And money is a relationship. How you relate to money, how you experience money. I was in a training with this incredibly wealthy person who was teaching us about stocks and stuff like that. And he said, actually, this was in a different scenario. Anyway, someone in a training said, treat money like your lover. Mm-hmm. And if you are always scared it's going to go away, if you are approaching it with desperation or fear or questions or mistrust, if you never paid attention to it, if you never spent time with it, if you never did anything fun with it, and you only paid attention to it when you needed something, and you treated a relationship like that, a lover like that, they probably wouldn't want to spend that much time with you. And so shifting it, again, it's really slow. Shifting that relationship with money to being more open, more fluid, and even considering, like, what would it feel like to be deeply supported by money? And a lot of people are like, I don't know what that would feel like. Is that even possible? And wealth wounds are very, very common.
Yeah.
Very common.
Yeah, I did an episode about the wealth wound, and I would love to talk about that with you too, because everybody has one, regardless of your gender. But I feel like for women in particular, because we have these patriarchal wounds on top of whatever generational and ancestral story we have, that's a whole other layer that we are dealing with when it comes to wealth and what we have been told. And for those who are watching this, I'm saying told with air quotes, because whether it was vocalized or not, it was expressed to us that, you know, don't you worry your pretty little head, you clip your coupons, you pinch your pennies, you take care of the housework, you know, he'll take care of the money. You don't need to worry about that. That's not your job. That's not your place. You know, that's not for you. That's not your sandbox to play in. And a number of other ways that over centuries women have been told that this is not for them, and that we shouldn't want it, that we shouldn't go after it, that, you know, the greed and everything that comes with it, it's just so much. And you're right, we do have it in our body whether we recognize it or not. And so you've got that wound that comes along with it too. And then, you know, with anything else, there's that scarcity piece, and you get into this fight or flight or freeze response too. And I just can't help but think that all of that comes back into where you feel that or how you react to that inside of your body.
Absolutely. And the beliefs that you have about money that are given to you, reinforced by society, by expectations around gender. What are man's jobs? What is a women's place? Those types of things. And if you do go after money, if you pursue money, if you're motivated by money, somehow that is seen as not positive.
Right.
And it does live in the body, in how we are taught to somehow be taken care of by money, but it is dependent on another person. And I even remember that growing up. Like, my dad made enough money so my mom could stay home. But I always felt like it was my dad's money. It was not the family's money. And not necessarily, he didn't say that, but to think that I had to ask for it, it had to be given to me, and if I wanted to earn it, that somehow I was money hungry, and that was seen negatively. And so we have to shift what it feels like to be in a relationship with money that isn't, that feels more fluid, that feels more aligned with what we desire and where that lives in our bodies, because we are scared.
Yeah.
People are scared about money, and they have had, my somatic mentor, Lauren Zoller, calls it a case file. We have all of this experience that reinforces the idea that, you know, don't want money, you'll be greedy, or whatever your stories are around money, you likely have experience to reinforce that. And so it is hard to make this huge switch to be like, oh, I'm abundant, I attract wealth. it's an identity switch, which does not happen overnight. And if it did, you wouldn't know how to handle it. And your body would be like, this is totally unfamiliar. This isn't me. And so it's gradual. It's kind of like the difference between a light switch and a fader.
Yeah.
Or what are those
Dimmer
called?
switch.
A dimmer switch. Yeah. You can make the switch, but it's going to switch right back off because it's not something your body can hold.
You're going to blow a fuse. Wow. That's true. That's so true. And that is why, if you're anything like me, I have such a hard time with those affirmations and things like that, because you have to believe it. Even you can tell yourself as many times as you want, but if you don't believe that deep down in your core, it's too hard to identify with that and truly, I guess, feel it is the best way to say that, within your body and in your soul, and really align with that. I think that's a good word too, but just adopt that as your identity. So that's true. I like that light switch versus dimmer switch, because it is those baby steps. Yeah, because you can't just overnight go from all of this scarcity and fear and stress to, now I'm good. Yeah, I'm good. I got this. But the thing that you said that struck me the most was to ask yourself, what would it feel like if I felt completely supported by money? And I would invite everybody to really contemplate that question and what that feeling is like, because you're right with the relationship too. I've used that in a talk before, acting like it's a person that you have a relationship with. It's a very common thing to think about. And what would it be like to feel completely supported by that? Think about somebody that you are completely supported by, and what would that be like if it was money, your finances, and you felt completely supported and secure in that? Because that's what we're all looking for with money, is security. And none of us feel like we have it. We feel like it's just sand slipping through our fingers most of the time.
Yeah. What you said about thinking about someone who you feel deeply supported by, I would encourage everyone to notice, where do they feel that in the body? Where do you feel support? And then just taking 20 seconds. And then see if you might be open to the possibility that you could also feel that way in relation to money. And you might not be able to right away, but
Sure.
Keep practicing. And it's, I've never had this like visual before, but it's like braces. They take years.
I had them for 10.
Really?
Tell me about it.
And it would be traumatic to take all of your teeth overnight and move them into the place where they're like final resting place when you're done with your braces. But it is really gradual. It takes time, and your teeth are sore, like your gums are sore. But finally you get to a place where they settle in, and that's like what the identity shift is like braces.
I could not love that more, because for those of you that don't know, I was in dentistry for 15 years before I got into real estate and all of this other stuff. So perfect. If you moved your teeth that fast, they would fall out, because the bones have to shift to support the movement. Okay. Just a little dentistry knowledge for everybody there. There you go. So I want to switch gears a little bit and talk about, you said you're a divorce coach too. And part of the reason that I started this entire community and this podcast was because coming out of my divorce, I didn't have kind of any financial structure for myself. I knew what to do, but I hadn't had to do it for myself. And then I had to go in search of more education than was available to me. And that's how we got here. I want to give that to other people. So you did the same thing. Coming out of a divorce, you wanted to give back to other people going through that. So tell me more about that process for you.
Yeah, I was in talk therapy with 2 different therapists for 7 years. And I felt very devastated by my divorce. I would have stayed married even though it really wasn't going to turn out to be healthy for either of us in the long term. And even though I did all of the things they tell you to do, I was in talk therapy, I had a hobby, I spent time with friends, I read books, I listened to podcasts, and I still felt like there was this missing piece around how do you actually live as a divorced person. There are lots of resources about money and moving and the logistical pieces, and there's other professionals like attorneys that are involved. But I didn't feel like I really had anyone sharing with me how to really create this new identity that was so different than what I had originally planned. And I needed more of the like social dynamic support. How was I supposed to talk to my friends? How did I redo this relationship that I had with myself? It shifts family dynamics. Like it changes the entire social experience. And I just didn't feel like I could find resources for that. And so my work is really focused on the divorce recovery side. So after you get through a lot of the logistical and legal pieces, and unfortunately, a lot of people do leave themselves at the end of the list because all of those other pieces are urgent and involve other people. And so that's why I started Better Half to Whole, was really to address the small incremental changes that happen when you are creating an entirely different life. Yeah, I needed more, and I couldn't find the resources to support me in my day-to-day life and in my other relationships because it shifted everything.
Yeah, it does. And that's so awesome. And so many, entrepreneurs I talk to overall, when you ask the story, it's like, well, I didn't have what I needed, so I did it myself. And I love that you did that and you're supporting women in that way. And you're taking it that step further. Talk therapy even wasn't enough. And you're finding more in the body and connecting with the body and really digging deeper into all that. So I love what you're doing with that. I want to ask you, because I was talking in the last episode about stress around money and the triggers of even, you've set this budget, you've set this savings plan, you've got this automated, investment protocol, and you're trying to do everything right, quote unquote, and then something happens like it always does. What is one simple practice you could share with our audience when they get triggered around money, or they feel they're in this repetitive cycle of like, see, I told you I wasn't good with money, or see, something always happens. Could you share something with us, like a simple practice that we could use when we get triggered by money?
Yes. There is a practice that I don't know if it has a name necessarily, but introducing an opposite thought. So if a bill comes up and you're like, oh, see, I'm bad with money, or this always happens to me. If there was something you could bring to mind of like, what is a really positive experience you've had with money? Or say the bill comes in, but you had the money to pay for it. And can you recognize you are supported by money? Even though this bill came in, you have the money to pay for it. And where does that land in the body? How does it feel to know I can pay my bills, even the unexpected ones that come in? So that is one practice, is like introducing an opposing thought, especially if I'm bad with money or whatever the belief is, introducing something that is going to build another case file for you, because we really do find what we look for. And so giving your brain, giving your body another possibility that maybe you have a more balanced relationship with money than you've been telling yourself.
Yeah, looking for that evidence. I love that. It's because we have that confirmation bias. It's like, see, I told you, this always happens to me, or see, I told you. And we're looking for that. So then that leads us into behaviors that create that reality. And yeah, I talked about that in a masterclass I did a few weeks ago. If we're in that cycle, then we're going to create those behaviors and we're going to get those results, and then we're going to see again, I did that. How do we switch that? And that's perfect, is seeing where can I look for evidence of the opposite? And I had to do this for myself, not necessarily with money, but I'm in the practice right now. I have a terrible time seeing. I'm a perfectionist. I'm a high achiever. I'm a perfectionist. Could you tell? And so I'm working with someone, and she's like, you're going to have this success journal, and every day you have to add 3 things to it that you succeeded. And that's a definition of success, is a thing that somebody has to define for themselves. So I had to start recognizing things that were positive, that were good, that I did, to reaffirm to myself those things, not waiting like, oh, well, that's not good enough, that's not good enough, that's not good enough. It's the same thing. We have to start not just looking for it, but I think documenting it and, if reinforcing that, just like you said. How do we reinforce that? Start that new case file. I love that example, starting a new case file. How do we keep that going? So tell me more about somatics, not necessarily around money, but tell me what you called the trauma
renegotiation.
Tell me what that means.
Yeah. So our bodies, whenever we have had a traumatic experience or have been harmed in some way, the body goes into a survival pattern. And so the trauma renegotiation happens when we give the body enough time and space and safety to return to like a regulated state. And what happens with trauma is that your body wasn't given enough time, space, or safety in that moment or afterwards. And so the trauma gets, quote unquote, stuck, and that is continuing to loop in the body. So the trauma renegotiation, if we were in a session, for example, and someone was in a car accident, for example, and they have, every time they get in a car, they feel super stressed out. And so what we might do is let the trauma response, let the stressor, the activation build in the body, not so much that it's going to send them, off into space, but having enough time for the body to experience that same activation, but in the current moment, and recognizing that they're safe. Because the body speaks to us, the nervous system speaks to us in sensation and emotion. And even though you might know, I'm sitting in this car and I'm not going to get hurt. I'm not in an accident. We're not even moving. But the body doesn't know that. And so reinforcing the opposite that is true. Like, I could sit in this car and I'm safe. Or if I'm sitting in this room with you right now, if I think about getting into a car, I can then remind myself, yeah, but you're not in the car right now. You're in this room. And so having enough time and space to maybe bring up that memory or that experience, but in a safe container, so that your body can naturally de-escalate. So we're working with the natural rhythms of the body, because you can only experience like the peak of an emotion for so long. And then the body will learn that even though that might be a painful memory, you're safe in this moment now. And so the renegotiation is really the unwinding of a stuck trauma response, and the body needs time and space to do that.
And how many of us walk around with those things stored and we don't even recognize it? It's subconscious, unconscious. And I know a lot of people that I work with, these money stories are so deeply embedded, they don't even realize they're projecting them out, and that they wonder why things are happening the way they are. So, yes, I got into this work to teach investment strategies to women. That was it. And then the more I realized how important that this work is. None of the other stuff matters if we don't do this along with it. Because if A, we don't believe we're worth it, we're not going to, that doesn't matter. And B, life happens. You know, big T, little t, all the things are going to happen. And the most important thing is our ability to regulate, whether it's around money or anything else. So having these skills and having people like you that can teach us these things and help us recognize A, when it's happening, and B, how to then go about switching that, renegotiating that within ourselves so that we can have just much more awareness around our body, around our responses, around our reactions and behaviors and patterns and all of these things that shape our identity, like you said.
Yeah. I want to say something about regulation.
Yeah.
Because the most important thing is actually not regulation.
Oh.
It is the capacity of the nervous system to be able to hold both, so that you do have regulation techniques. And that is really important. But as you said, life is going to happen. And so building the capacity of the nervous system, of self-worth, the ability to hold money, it has to expand in the body. And so regulation techniques are amazing. Yes, we want to get back to that like rest or digest state, but things are going to happen. And so building, quote, building the capacity in the nervous system is your body being able to hold big things that happen in life that are stressful or hard, but then also, on the other hand, the wealth, the joy, the love, so that you have a balance of both and your body knows how to get back to that safety. And we can try to regulate all day long, but things are going to happen. And so having that flexibility within the nervous system to go in between both is critical, so that we can stay present and stay in the body. And you won't have to work as hard to regulate because your capacity will be bigger.
That's beautiful. I heard a lady say one time, kind of on that same vein, you have to think of it like a trampoline. And when you were a kid and you would get super high, like not super high, we're in Colorado, but when you would jump so high and you could feel it in your belly and you would get so elated, but you would get a little bit scared. But you couldn't do that high and have that much joy unless you went really low. And that's exactly what you're saying, is we can't, as humans, experience the full breadth and depth of our emotional capacity and our life in general if we can't hold space for all of it. So thank you for saying that.
No, I mean, you're right. And there's more.
Yeah, there's always more. So I do love that. The duality of everything is what makes us humans. So that's perfect.
Yes, totally.
Awesome. So I'm going to wrap up our time here because I could talk to you for a long time. But I'm very excited because if you're not watching, Madisen and I got to be in the same room today. So we got to actually do an in-person interview. So I'm very excited about that. But you do your work virtually, right? So anyone that's listening can work with you, correct?
Yeah. So I do almost all of my work virtually. I'm a coach, so I can work with anyone in any state, in any country. And I offer one-on-one sessions in a 12-week program to really get to the root of what's happening. And there are a lot of people who come to somatic work when they have done the work, but it didn't work. And that was me. Like, I didn't quite feel like myself, and I knew there was something more. And the somatic work really was the missing piece for me to come back into my body, to be able to experience my life and not be so stressed about my life all the time. But I'm offering, between now and the end of the year, I'm offering a free somatic healing workshop series. And I'm on Instagram at Better Half to Whole. And that's the best way to get in touch with me, is Instagram or my website. We can work one-on-one And then I'm also planning on launching a group program in 2026 for us to heal together, because we can do so much on our own and in one-on-one, but it's so powerful to be witnessed and held by other people, especially when we're practicing being vulnerable and speaking our truth and learning what it looks like to be present.
Yeah, that's awesome. And what a gift, guys. She's giving away free somatic sessions. Please take advantage of that. We're going to put all of her information in the show notes. Madisen, thank you so much for coming out to the office today and recording with me live. This was so much fun. Guys, check out all of her stuff. Thank you for sticking with us today. And tune into your body, tune into your money, and we'll see you next time.
If this lit something up, share it, review it, and get in the room. Join the Expand Your Empire community and start turning wisdom into wealth. You're not too late, and you're not doing this alone.